Well, hello and welcome into another edition of the PHNX D-backs podcast right here on PHNX. My name is Derek Montilla, occasionally known as your mayor of PHNX, and this man next to me is actually here, present, and not at Petco Park. It's the one and only Thunderstick Jesse Friedman, your vice mayor, but of course, he is still in San Diego. He's just not at Petco Park. Jesse, how you feeling, buddy?
I'm okay. I'm okay. Came down with a bit of a stomach bug situation this morning. Unfortunately, did not want to contaminate the entire Diamondbacks clubhouse.
We appreciate that.
But I'm feeling fine. Should probably be good to go to cover the rest of the games this weekend. So I'm fine, Derek. But D-backs
aren't fine
after a 10-3 loss tonight.
No, I don't know really where to start with tonight's game. The Diamondbacks obviously didn't get a whole lot of offense. The Padres did, but I did want to talk a bit about how close they were at one point and how this final score, I don't really is a great indication of how this game went up until an eighth inning where things completely spiraled out of control for this team. I guess a good place to start, though, would be with Brandon Pfaadt. He didn't seem to have his best stuff right away, giving up back-to-back home runs in the first inning and giving the Padres a 2-0 lead there early.
Yeah. Pfaadt was this was one of his worst starts of the year, frankly. I mean, 5 1/3 innings, 9 hits, 5 runs. We've seen Pfaadt get bit by the big inning in some recent outings for sure. But today it wasn't just, one big inning. There were a couple of home runs early, a tack-on run a couple of innings later, and then of course the 2-run homer by Ha-Seong Kim in the 5th, or I guess in the 6th, that ultimately knocked Pfaadt out of this game. So yeah, 3 homers. This is, one of the more positive developments for Pfaadt this season is that he's managed to keep the ball in the yard, which is something he really struggled with when he first came up. But he did not do that. He did not do that in this game.
Well, we've kind of talked a little bit about the fact that Pfaadt has an inning kind of go sideways on him almost in every start. It was looking a little bit like, he just gave up those 2 solo home runs, which really in the grand scheme of things wasn't that terrible if he could just dial it in and, essentially give the Diamondbacks 5-6 strong innings after that, but wasn't really able to do that. Didn't really throw his sweeper very much tonight.
He didn't. No, we normally see Pfaadt feature the sweeper quite a lot. It's pretty clearly his best pitch, I would say, has been from the moment that he entered the league. But part of that I think was that the Padres had a lot of left-handed hitters in their lineup today, as teams often do against Pfaadt. I mean, it's no secret if you look at his splits, lefties and righties, it's a pretty big difference. And a big reason for that, as we've discussed in the past, is that the sweeper is generally a split heavy kind of a pitch. It tends to work a lot better against same-handed hitters than it does opposite-handed hitters because there's not a lot of drop there. A lot of it is horizontal movement, and a left-handed hitter is just going to be able to pick that up a lot easier than a right-handed hitter is. And we saw that in this game. It wasn't really all that effective when he did throw it. That's the Ha-Seong Kim 2-run homer was on a sweeper that was pretty much center cut. And when, even beyond that, he wasn't throwing it all that much in this game to begin with, probably in large part because of the Padres having so many lefties, I guess. And also the fact that it just wasn't, his command of it didn't seem to be where it usually is.
Jesse, we're delivering a lot of bad news in this game. Diamondbacks lose 10-3. So I'm going to try to make things better and bring Cosmo in here. Now, he's not going to offer any kind of insight onto what happened with Brandon Pfaadt and his sweeper tonight, but he's just going to be here making snorty sounds like this, which I really think adds to the audio quality a lot. And you're going to show us what exactly what was going on with Pfaadt's sweeper location.
Yeah. Is that just Cosmo breathing?
That's just
sounds like when he breathes.
It's not actually what it sounds like when he breathes. This is actually him talking when he is like when he's trying to express himself. He doesn't do it in like whines. He just does it in like a series of grunts. he is a small baby hippopotamus, and we'll bring him back here to bring the vibes back up after we talk about how much Michael King has dominated the Diamondbacks. But let's take a look at Pfaadt's sweeper locations from tonight's start.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty. If we can show that graphic, there's a whole lot of pitches that are in the middle.
It's struggling a little bit here.
Okay,
it's struggling.
Okay.
It's going to be ready in about 10 seconds. I don't know if you guys can see it uploading, but it's really working at its own pace.
We're at the will of and the mercy of the internet tonight quite a bit. I'm actually shocked, by the way, that Jesse's hotel internet is holding up so far as well as it is.
Yeah, this hotel, man, I gotta give no free ads. I won't.
Yeah, don't tell which chain
the name of this establishment, but they really nailed it in terms of the hotel Wi-Fi. I hope I'm not jinxing myself by saying that.
You probably are.
That's
the way things are.
Am.
You can never be happy. You're just jinxing the future by being happy at any point. It's kind of like when we were talking about Brandon Pfaadt being the Diamondbacks' most consistent starting pitcher that he's been able to give it. The Diamondbacks again, he has the one bad inning at times, but he's been able to give them length. He's been able to give them consistency. And right when we started saying that, he has an outing like he has tonight. And I'm not saying it was a disaster, but it wasn't great. And nothing seemed to be really working really well for him. I mean, he did have his four-seamer and his sinker working.
He did. Yeah. The four-seamer and sinker, I thought were pretty clearly his two best pitches in this game. He had 20 combined called strikes between those two pitches, which is a lot. Granted, home plate umpire certainly did the Diamondbacks some favors, just as the home plate umpire from yesterday's game did them some favors. It feels like it's been incredibly lopsided between in these two games.
I can't say that the Diamondbacks haven't been getting calls in these games. That's for sure. Because at one point it was fairly egregious, Jesse. Fairly egregious.
Yeah, it was pretty egregious. And good on Bert for having some fun with that on the TV broadcast. I was sort of chuckling throughout the entire thing every time he talked about the fan club for either tonight's umpire or last night's umpire. It's pretty much the same story in both cases. But yeah, Pfaadt's four-seamer, his sinker, those pitches were effective for him today, as I said earlier, mainly because of just how many called strikes he was able to get on those pitches. He got some whiffs with the four-seamer as well. The changeup also, I think it showed you kind of why it has the potential to be a very good out pitch in this game. His movement numbers were up a little bit on that pitch today. I think he had 1 inch more vertical drop, as well as 2 more inches of horizontal run on that pitch today versus his season average. So his changeup was kind of moving all over the place. It was a really nice looking pitch, but I think there were just a few too many of them that were just too far off the outside edge of the plate that weren't getting Padres hitters to swing, or I think they fouled off a couple of them as well. It's not really a pitch that he tends to throw in the strike zone very much. I think he threw maybe 2 of them in the zone today. It's generally a pitch that he's trying to throw down below the zone to get some swing and miss or some weak contact. And he just wasn't getting it close enough to the zone to really entice Padres hitters and get them to, either hit it weakly on the ground or swing over the top of it.
Sorry,
I don't know how Cosmo feels about that.
Petey wanted to know Cosmo's exit velo today. 117 off the bat for this guy, but he's a power slugger. It's a little different for him. Brandon Pfaadt, again, I think right now, it doesn't raise red flags because he wasn't very good against the Padres the last time he faced them with Michael King on the mound opposite of him, right? And Michael King, to be fair, has been very, very good against the Arizona Diamondbacks this year. Somehow this man has kind of owned the Diamondbacks.
He has, yeah. Michael King has kind of owned the Diamondbacks, and Brandon Pfaadt has sort of gotten owned by the Padres a little bit. Although I think it was only 3 earned runs. Pfaadt gave up 5 runs, but only 3 of them were earned over 6 innings in his previous start against the Padres. That was back on May 4th. But he gave up 10 hits in that game. He gave up 9 hits today. So Padres hitters have really just seemed pretty comfortable in the box against Brandon Pfaadt. I'm not sure exactly what the reason is there, but I guess one silver lining from this game, Derek, could be that the last time that Michael King faced Brandon Pfaadt, the Diamondbacks lost 13-1. And tonight, the Diamondbacks lost 10-3.
That's
so moving in the right direction.
That is not a silver lining, Jesse. I don't think you know how silver linings work. Of course, we do know that once the Diamondbacks get down by 2 runs this year, it's over. So, of course, there's that whole thing to address in regards to their inability to come back. But we do have the graphic here to show you where on that sweeper.
I don't think I could hear you when that was up.
Oh, okay.
So we might
for some reason it muted you.
Oh, no problem. Let's throw that back up there.
We can't.
It's muting us every time.
It mutes us, but which is okay. But you guys all saw it. Yeah. And the moral of the story is there were a lot of sweepers that were just right over the middle of the zone. Pfaadt normally has pretty good feel for sort of painting the lower outside corner or getting it just off of that outside edge to right-handed hitters. And he really just wasn't able to do that in this game. This, Derek, was the first game in Brandon Pfaadt's career where he has not gotten a whiff on a sweeper. His previous low was 2. He had always gotten at least 2 whiffs on a sweeper. That includes the playoffs, every start that he's ever made at the big league level, even the early days where he was really struggling. So yeah, just a really kind of an uncharacteristic day from Pfaadt where the sweeper command just really wasn't there at all.
Diamondbacks were down 5-0 at one point in this game, Jesse. The Padres tacked on a run in the 5th with back-to-back 2-out singles. Then they scored 2 more in the 5th on a 2-run homer by Kim. And of course, the Diamondbacks things look bleak, right? But then they have that big 7th inning. They get their own back-to-back jacks. They get Cattell hitting a 2-run home run. They get Lourdes Gurriel stepping in and getting his, I think we got a notification, I think 2nd career pinch hit home run, or might have been his first. I'll verify that. But they get the back-to-back dingers and they make it a 5-3 game at that point. Things got exciting. Things got interesting. A game that pretty much felt like it was kind of out of reach at 5-0. No longer felt out of reach, especially with the way that this offense has been performing over the last week or 10 days or so. So the belief was there. And instead, Torey Lovullo stuck with Humberto Castellanos. And I don't want to put any disrespect on his name, but he wasn't extremely sharp. He did give the Diamondbacks a couple of solid innings, I guess you could say, but there was just a point where you felt like if the Diamondbacks were going to come back there in the bottom of the 8th inning, they needed to switch before things went off the rail, and they did not. The Padres scored 5 runs in the inning. Torey waited very, very long time to go out there and eventually pull Castellanos. And I guess, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, the Diamondbacks didn't put up any more runs. And if the outcome would have remained the same, but he did swap, a reliever out and they were able to hold it, a 5-3 game, it most likely in this universe, in this timeline, would have ended as a 5-3 game. But I do have to question at one point, it did feel like Torey wasn't trying to win this game. It felt like win or lose, he was going to stick with Humberto out there and use it as an opportunity to rest his bullpen potentially. I mean, I know that bullpen has been taxed quite a bit, and I know at some point you do got to concede, games. You got to not, there's times where you're down by enough that you have to be a bit reasonable and, manage it as a loss and try to just, limit the amount of damage and limit the amount of arms you use so that you're not putting yourself in a poor position going forward in a 4-game series during a 13-game stretch of taxing your bullpen even worse. But This just felt like a definite, kind of surrender, if you will. And that's kind of the theme of this show. And again, there's an entire argument to be made about the fact the Diamondbacks didn't do anything more offensively. So this is a conversation that is meaningless in a way. But again, sometimes when you do see your manager actively doing things to try to, win a game and you're able to keep a game close, it gives you a bit more hope than going out there after seeing the Padres give up 5 or put up 5 runs on the board and trying to do something in a 10-3 game. Like at that point, it's truly over and you just want to get out of the ballpark as soon as possible, and I felt like that was a big moment where this team might have been able to muster up some sort of comeback, but instead they just kind of waved the white flag.
Yeah, I think it's fair. Like the Diamondbacks didn't, they didn't do a whole lot offensively. And, in the 9th inning, it was relatively quick. But yeah, if it's a 5-3 game, are they a little bit more engaged? Does that kind of change their mindset a little bit?
Right.
10-3 game, like, yeah, it's over at that point. I think everyone sort of understands that. Like Castellanos, you can totally understand when it was a 5-0 game. It was like, all right, this is a 5-run game. Castellanos is here for length. He'd been starting down in Reno. So you might as well use him to just maybe even just finish off the game and get you to tomorrow without having to use any of your other relievers. You just give all of those guys a day off. But then, with, Ketel and Lourdes going back to back, then you've got yourself a 2-run game. And Torey's in a tricky spot where he probably doesn't want to flip over to using, Mantiply, Ginkel, Thompson, all those guys, because you're still down by 2 runs. He normally wouldn't do that anyway. But you also don't want to you want to be in a position where you can give your offense a couple of more shots to try to make up those final 2 runs. And Castellanos obviously wasn't able to do that for them. So yeah, at least, maybe like send him out for the 8th inning, but maybe get him out of there a little bit. I guess this was the 7th inning. Or no, it was the 8th inning.
It was the 8th inning. Yeah, it was the bottom of the 8th inning.
Yeah, like maybe get him out of there a little bit sooner. Once once it was 6-3 at that point, I don't think there was anybody out in the inning. There were still a couple of base runners. Maybe you go to Vieira or somebody else to try to at least give you a little bit better of a shot at coming back.
Well, Thiago Vieira did make his D-backs debut in this one. He was claimed by the Orioles this year. Actually, he was with the Brewers originally, right? Before going to the Orioles and then before coming here. How did that all break down?
Yeah, he was with the Brewers through about 22 innings there, a 5.85 ERA, not great numbers. He was DFA'd. He was claimed by the Orioles. He made 1 appearance with the Orioles, and I believe he faced 4 batters, I want to say, and 3 of them walked, and 1 of them had a hit. He did not retire a batter, and that 1 appearance was the Orioles. Then they DFA'd him, and the Diamondbacks picked him up. The selling point with Vieira is certainly the velocity. You saw it in the game today, even though his outing was very, very brief. But he was throwing, I think it was 1 batter, right?
David was it?
There you go. But he was, he's pumping 98, 99 miles an hour. So you can see the appeal there. His control has been pretty shaky. Had a couple of nice seasons pitching out in Japan a couple years ago. So there's you can kind of see what teams are thinking with this guy and why he could be effective, but he hasn't really put it together at any point in the majors.
Well, of course, we do have to give our king snake to someone, and that someone is Ketel Marte, because Ketel Marte continues to be the heart and soul of this team for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Marte has been multiple multi-hit games as of late. This is another multi-hit game for him. 2 hits tonight. It was 2 for 5 with that home run. He had 2 RBI, and honestly, like Ketel, he continues to deliver. I mean, he might not always be the guy every single night, but this baseball team wasn't constructed for him to be the guy every single night. It just feels like recently he's kind of had to take that on a bit. Jock Peterson continues to be very good. He's 2 for 3 tonight. But Ketel just seems to always have those big hits, and I don't know, man. It's just really, really thankful to have him on this team and have him just seemingly getting better as his career goes on.
Yeah, Cattell hit the homer off a Padres lefty, Wandy Peralta, and you kind of feel like the opposing team is sort of asking for Cattell to hit a homer when they bring in a lefty reliever and a lefty reliever winds up facing him. So I can't say I was exactly shocked by that outcome. I guess Mike Schill was okay with that because Padres were still up 5-0 at that point. So even if he did homer, which he did, they were still up by 3 runs at that point, still in a pretty good position. So Cattell just continues to absolutely destroy left-handed pitching. It is really unreal what he is doing in that regard. So much fun to watch. And we're starting to see him pick things up against righties as well. He went through a bit of a rough patch. I think his OPS going back to the middle of May against righties was somewhere in the 500s. I tweeted that out a few days ago. So he was really doing pretty much all of his damage against lefties there for a while, but we started to see that come back into balance a little bit in these last few games. But yeah, Cattell against lefties, it's a pretty unreal experience.
Well, Cattell coming into this game had a 3.4 WAR or B-WAR, whatever you prefer to say, which
that's
is second,
insane. Honestly, that's a crazy number for this.
Second in the National League and 7th in the majors. Not to mention defensively, his 1.2 defensive B-WAR leads the National League and is tied for second Major League Baseball with old friend Dalton Varsho for the Toronto Blue Jays and behind Marcus Semien for the Texas Rangers. So Cattell just continues to be incredibly valuable for this team, and most likely will be heading to Texas as an all-star, which we will talk about here shortly. But we wanted to talk about our all-stars, which are our diehard members. Of course, we thank you guys so much for being diehard members. We appreciate you guys a ton. There is a brand new diehard interview that I conducted with my pal Steve Zinsmeister, the pregame and postgame host for D-Backs Radio. So that is available for you diehard members. If you're not a diehard member, join us over here at gophnx.com. You get exclusive content like that. You get access to all of Jesse's written content and all of our wonderful writers. I don't know if you heard, but Craig Morgan, he's just bopping around. He was just on the ASU show the other day. Craig Morgan's just doing writing for everyone. So, I mean, that alone should let you know that eventually we're going to see a fight between Jesse and Craig. And that will definitely be televised only for diehards. So make sure to get your diehard membership now. You get discounts on our events like that fight. That fight we'll probably sell tickets for, and you can get discounts on that and so much more, including our Mercury takeover, which Kayla Cooper, let's fucking go. Mercury had a big win tonight over the Lynx. So make sure to join us for that takeover for the Phoenix Mercury. Of course, also, speaking of things to join us at, come get these hands at Chicken and Pickle. I can't tell you, Jesse, how much I enjoyed going over to Chicken and Pickle. I had no idea it was such an enormous facility. It's beautiful. There's so much to do. Even if you are not a fan of pickleball, it doesn't matter. There's a million other things for you.
They've got ping pong, Derek. They got ping pong.
Yeah, come get those hands in ping pong from Jesse. But
I may or may not have gone to Chicken and Pickle and just played ping pong the entire time.
You did.
That's sort of how I roll.
And you didn't even eat a chicken sandwich, which, by the way, I can't describe to you how delicious
I regret that
sandwich it was. It was they have a special like pickled chicken sandwich that's like it's like brined in pickle juice and then grilled. It was out of this world. So make sure to check out the wonderful food they have to offer. It's an indoor-outdoor entertainment complex, includes a casual chef-driven restaurant. It's a sports bar. You can bring your doggos. There's just all sorts of wonderful stuff to do, including Pickleball with Pops, which is an annual event that is returning here on June 16th. So make sure to grab your favorite doubles partner. And by that, I mean dad. And make sure to meet us on the courts. Check your first beer or non-alcoholic drink is included with your ticket on that. So register at reservecnp.com. They also have so much more fun, including summer camp, junior pickleball camps this summer for kids to learn pickleball. When my daughter was really little, I used to take her to an outdoor pickleball court over here, and we had a blast. The people waiting on us to take our court, they didn't have as much fun, but we had a blast. So it's a great time to be had with the kids. Kids absolutely love pickleball, and it's just such an easy sport to pick up. So head to chickenandpickle.com to see all the fun you can have at their Glendale location. Also, right here in the Valley, of course, for more than 84 years, Desert Financial Credit Union has been Arizona's largest, most trusted local credit union. They got me started on my home ownership journey. That's how long they've been around, long enough that at one point I was a 20-year-old that had no place to live. And they got me started down this wonderful path of being in this room I'm in right now, filled with these stupid video games behind me. But I'm so grateful that they did. Remember, Desert Financial is a financial institution you can trust, with financial experts who are committed to their members and the community, offering financial solutions that will help you achieve your financial goals. Join a credit union that's committed to giving back to the community and sharing success with its members. Right now, when you open a free checking account online, you can get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200 right now. I did want to give a shout out to one of our favorite viewers. He might be a part-time listener, but I know that he's a full-time viewer, and that's our guy Andrew Dang. He sent us a super chat yesterday that we didn't get a chance to get to, but he did send us one thing saying he thinks the D-backs can climb to second place in the National League West by next month. And honestly, with the schedule ahead, that is a very, very that's very, very possible, right? The Diamondbacks have some easy games ahead against some opponents who have been losing quite a bit. Hopefully they can take care of business against those opponents and not be that get right team that we referenced them being at one point. Also wanted to give a huge shout out to OGs, because this is Flavoring Fridays. And I mean, again, this is a great night for OGs. This is a great way to get over a loss. So of course, OGs Brands, the official sponsor of Flavoring Fridays. Head on over to ogsbrands.com to see their full lineup, including their two newest gummies, the OGs Naturals and the Big OGs, and their entire line of wonderful flavors and strains and doses, everything that they have to offer. Find out where you can purchase them and find out more information about their wonderful product. Jesse, the Diamondbacks, again, they still can't lose or win games or come back from games when they're down by 2 runs or more. I believe they only have, is it 2 victories this year? Or is it still, it's 2 victories when they are down by 2+ runs?
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
Not answer backs. No answer. That answer back shirt, I'm making sure it gets pulled from the shop. I've said it before. Cannot exist because they cannot allow. They just can't have that name. They can't answer back. You can't have the answer back name, but you can have the count. And let's take a look at the count presented by our friends at Desert Financial Credit Union. Diamondbacks really got waxed in this one. Jesse out hit 14-8. Runners in scoring position. Padres were 3 for 9, which it seems like they were 10 for 11 or 20 for 30. Just seems like they kept scoring runs. Diamondbacks 0 for 5 in that department. Those 2 home runs were the majority of their, actually those 2 home runs were all of their offense, because one was a 2-run home run and one was a solo shot. Padres had 3 home runs on the night. They also hit the ball very hard. Their hard hit percentage was 45.5% to the Diamondbacks, measly 24%. What is it? What is it about this man, Michael King, that the Diamondbacks just can't figure out, Jesse?
You know, Michael King, I was thinking about this during the game. Michael King is actually pretty similar to Brandon Pfaadt in a lot of ways, right? Like, he's 4-seam sinker guy with a sweeper and a changeup. Like, the pitch arsenals are basically identical. I think King also throws a slider as well, which is a little bit different than his sweeper. He only threw like a couple of those, not a pitch he uses very often. So their arsenals are really similar. King kind of has this weird cross body thing going on. People probably notice if they watch this game, his pitching motion is a little bit unconventional. And D-backs hitters just looked uncomfortable. They were seeing a lot of pitches. There were a lot of extended at bats. There were some very good at bats through the course of the day for the D-backs, but they just didn't always end very well. King just did a nice job of staying out of the middle of the zone. He had some big misses, which is, I think, a big reason why some of those counts, went so long. Why some of those at bats went so long. But he didn't really make like any significant mistake pitches, at least not very many of them. Whereas, as we showed earlier with Brandon Pfaadt, he had quite a few pitches that were sort of right in the middle. And I think that was a pretty big difference between those two guys tonight.
Yeah. And when you were talking about his sweeper, not to dwell on it too much, but was the bigger problem being centrally located? I know he missed literally right down in the middle several times with it, but was it more about that, or was it more about the fact that they were higher up in the zone? What was really the problem that was causing them to be able to pick up that sweeper and not miss it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably best used toward the bottom of the zone, but really what's important is that you get it on the outer edge of the plate, I think.
Okay.
I mean, I guess there could be room for like a front door sweeper in certain situations. That's a pretty hard pitch to execute.
But all those ones down the center, essentially, whether they were higher or lower, are all essentially misses.
Yeah. Any pitch that lands anywhere in the middle is certainly going to be a miss, even if it's at the bottom of the zone. Frankly, like I think Pfaadt is pretty much always aiming for that outside edge or a little bit off the outside edge if he's looking for a swing and miss. And part of this is also not just command, but I don't think the pitch moved quite as much today. If I can find this real quick. He was down 2 inches tonight in horizontal movement on the sweeper. So it wasn't sweeping quite as much. And that also can help explain why some of these pitches maybe landed a little bit more toward the middle than toward the outside edge of the plate to some of those righties.
Well, this is very discouraging because obviously with the way things have gone with Jordan Montgomery, now start to worry about Brandon Pfaadt a bit, start to worry about this starting lineup. I mean, we have had at least a bit of news about Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly both being out to, starting their throwing programs and such, but it does feel like, at least for Merrill Kelly, it's going to still be a while before we see him. Feels like Eduardo Rodriguez is going to be a while before we see him. And even Zach.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know with what we've heard about Zach, if it's very encouraging that he's going to be back or he's just going to be missing, 1 start or 2 starts. It does feel like it could potentially be more. I am proud of the job the bullpen has done, but just kind of, I guess, in going the opposite direction of what I was saying when I was accusing Torey of kind of waving the white flag here on this game. Like, there comes a point where you can only rely on the bullpen so much. When starting pitching is going to only give you like 4 solid innings, most nights. So, I mean, I think that's my concern, is that eventually all of this is going to catch up to them, and it could be at a bad time, right? It could be as soon as those games that I discussed earlier that are coming up with the White Sox, the Angels, and the Nationals, where it's a stretch that you should, get a lot of wins in there, and you just don't have the pitching essentially to get the job done.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, we really figured that Jordan Montgomery and Brandon Pfaadt were going to have to really step up during this stretch where they don't have Gallen, they don't have Kelly, they don't have Erod. You really needed a lot of those 2 guys, and that just hasn't really happened, right? Jordan Montgomery has a 6.80 ERA. I believe he has the highest ERA in baseball among pitchers who've thrown 40 or more innings this year. At least that was the case as of a couple of days ago. And then now you've got Pfaadt, who we've said it time and time again. I think he's pitched better than his numbers would indicate. But at the end of the day, a 4.60 ERA is a 4.60 ERA. And that's where Pfaadt stands right now. You've got him at a 4.60. You've got Montgomery at a 6.80. And the other 2 guys that are currently in the rotation, Slade Ciccone and Ryan Nelson, their ERAs aren't very good either, right? Ciccone as of right now is at 5.66. Ryan Nelson is at 5.44. I mean, those are your 4 guys that are in your rotation right now. We'll see what happens with the 5th spot on Sunday, but it's tough to win games, Derek, when you've got 4 guys with ERAs that high. It's really not rocket science.
Well, and I've talked about pressure, and I've talked about how this team is handling pressure. I think we've kind of made a fair point about the injuries, and that the injuries, the returning players, are definitely going to help out the pitching side more than the offense, because Alec Thomas and Geraldo Perdomo aren't bringing you a bunch of home runs, a bunch of power, and a really high batting average. I mean, they're going to do something for this team. They bring a lot more than just their numbers, their stats. I think Alec Thomas brings a swag that this team doesn't have, kind of a certain toughness. And I think Geraldo Perdomo definitely brings, some vibes that can definitely change not only the clubhouse, but just change guys' headspace when they're out there on the field, right? But I mean, again, really what it comes down to potentially is that Brandon Pfaadt and Jordan Montgomery know the same thing we do, which is that the Diamondbacks are really going to be relying on them during this stretch. And maybe, I don't know Jordan Montgomery, and I don't know about his ability to handle pressure, but I know that the guy did a damn good job in the playoffs last year. And I know that big game Brandon was able to obviously step up and handle the pressure from last year. So, part of this probably is that it's probably just a little bit of potentially hopelessness right now with this team. Like, I know that there's a lot of guys coming back, so you at least have that to rely on, that those guys will be back. It's not like we lost them for the season, and it's not like this team, as it's constructed, is how it's going to have to play out until the end of the year. It just feels like, again, it's a lot that these guys are a lot of weight that these guys are carrying. And right now, not to be too judgmental of them, it doesn't feel like they're doing a great job under the pressure at times. Certain guys are, like Ketel's thriving under the pressure. Ketel,
it seems like he's better. He's better.
It does. It feels like he's better under the pressure. He's had these amazing hit streaks. He had that historic hitting streak in the playoffs last year, and it feels like he didn't miss a beat from that stretch to this year. I mean, Ketel hasn't been perfect, but his numbers have been pretty damn good. And again, when compared to the rest of the team, he's been the guy that's kind of been holding it down, right? But I mean, it's hard. It's hard sometimes when you are suddenly looked at, especially someone like Jordan Montgomery that was expected to just kind of not be a role player, but be one of a very good starting rotation and not be the guy, not even be number two necessarily, just be one of the guys in the starting rotation. And then very quickly he's thrust into the role that everybody's looking at him like, well, you're essentially our ace now, right now.
And I mean, based on how he pitched last year, like, I don't know. I mean, Jordan Montgomery is your ace. On paper, coming into this season wouldn't have sounded like a terrible thing. Not an ideal thing. Like, he's generally been more of a mid-rotation guy than a frontline guy. But he was really, really good last year for the Cardinals and the Rangers. I mean, he had basically probably the best season of his career, was obviously instrumental in the playoffs and helping the Rangers do what they did. So, yeah, it's tough, Derek. Like, imagining this team with Gallen and Kelly and Erod, I mean, what a different universe of baseball team this becomes, right?
Yeah. And
I was thinking today about like how the Padres aren't at full strength either. They should have Darvish, they should have Musgrove. And then I realized, the Diamondbacks could have Gallen and Merrill Kelly and Eduardo Rodriguez. Like, that's a pretty you could argue the Diamondbacks are missing out on more than the Padres are. I think that's probably pretty fair to say. So it's unfortunate the situation that this team is in.
Well, I wish we were lying about the situation that they're in. And it's funny how different it goes from one night to the next, because last night it felt like we were kind of on top of the world because the Diamondbacks were able to win game one and kind of get out to a lead in a series for once. And this is an important series. So, you want to see him do a good job here. I think you are pretty satisfied with a split, right? But I'd be lying if I said I was satisfied with the split. But Jesse, I never lie. Damon, huge liar. You, occasional intentional fibber. But the numbers, they never lie. So what do you have for tonight's number from tonight's game?
Yeah, this goes back to Pfaadt. The number is 358. This is the batting average for Padres hitters against Brandon Pfaadt this season. I mentioned earlier, he hits. You have 10 hits to the Padres in his last outing earlier this season. His last outing against them earlier this season, and then you have 9 hits today. So Padres hitters are hitting 358 against Pfaadt this year. That, Derek, compared to a 218 mark for the rest of the league against Pfaadt. So I don't know what it is. Padres seem to have him figured out for whatever reason.
They got his number, man. They have his number. But of course, we thank you guys all for being here in the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, we implore you to do so now. Sign up for notifications that way you don't miss whenever our wonderful shows go live. Of course, drop us a like. We always appreciate when you do that. We also appreciate when you subscribe on the audio podcasting side. Make sure you leave us a review. We appreciate the feedback. We also very much appreciate those 5-star reviews. They help us out a ton. Again, a big thanks to tonight's sponsor of OG's Brands. OG's has a wide, delicious variety of gummies to offer, edibles, wonderful, delicious, and in very, very significant effects. Whether you're looking to get a good night's sleep, whether you're looking to just improve your mood, especially after a loss like this, or if you're looking, just to have a good time. So make sure to check out all the wonderful things OG's Brands has to offer. They have their Big OG's gummies right now, which is a mega version of Peg's Raspberry Orange RSO. And of course, for you vegans out there, they have OG's Naturals, which are vegan gummies made with live rosin, available in a sweet clementine flavor. Excuse me. The coughing has nothing to do with OG's. That's a different product. But to learn more about OG's gummies and where you can find them, head on over to ogsbrands.com. Must be 21 or over to enjoy, and please enjoy responsibly. Also, wins, losses, doesn't matter. Great way to spend a Friday night is with our friends at Four Peaks. Four Peaks has a wonderful variety of beers, including a variety pack that you can get at the grocery store that features a little bit of all they have to offer. So whether you're able to go down and check out their Four Peaks locations in person and try out their wonderful selection of beers on the tap, or get like a variety 15 pack from your store, you can definitely enjoy everything Four Peaks has to offer, including that Bad Birdie Juicy Golden Ale, which I love so much. Look at those. It's beautiful. The cans are beautiful. They're little tiny works of art. I almost feel bad drinking them because I feel like, that they belong on a shelf like we used to do when we were too young to actually drink, and we would just keep bottles and cans of that kind of nature. Maybe I'm just speaking of personal experience, but of course, check out all the wonderful can designs and wonderful options Four Peaks has to offer. Visit fourpeaks.com/locator to find all your favorite beers and events. Check out at Four Peaks Brew or at Four Peaks Pub to keep up with the latest in Arizona's hometown brewery. Must be 21 or over to drink Four Peaks, and please enjoy responsibly. Well, speaking of Ketel Marte and the way that he has been absolutely kicking ass this year, let's discuss the all-star candidates for the Diamondbacks for this year, because we're going to be there live and in person in Texas covering Torey Lovullo managing the National League team. And obviously we'll also be very excited to be covering whatever representatives from this team happen to make it to Arlington or Dallas, whatever you want to call the area. I don't want to call it Arlington. I just want to call it Dallas. Can I just say it's Dallas? That way people know which restaurants to recommend me to and which bars I need to go to. But we had the conversation, Jesse, about essentially voting for actual all-stars or voting for just the guys on your team. And I feel like it's become a very popular thing to just vote for the guys on your team, for fan bases to kind of unite and just try to get their guys voted in. But I remember when the voting process first started, as a baseball fan, I took it very seriously. I wanted to make sure the right guys got in, the guys who deserved it. And I still feel like that is the right call. And I'm guessing that's going to be the position you take as well.
Yeah, I've always, tried to do my best to kind of analyze who really deserves it. Even back, growing up in Arizona and being an avid Diamondbacks fan when I was a wee lad, I would still do my due diligence and try to figure out who really deserved to actually be in the All-Star game.
Remember punching out Chads?
I do remember that.
Chads everywhere.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Yeah.
My room would be littered with Chads.
As far as the Diamondbacks are concerned, the obvious candidate here is Ketel, right? Ketel leads not only all National League second baseman in OPS, he leads all second basemen in the sport in OPS with a mark of 848, I believe. Second place is Nolan Gorman, who has had a good season for the St. Louis Cardinals. But if you go over to wins above replacement, which I know you talked about Ketel's B-WAR earlier in the show, if we use Pfaadt, if we use Fangraphs WAR there.
The right one.
Ketel's at 2.5, and the next highest mark in the National League is Tyro Estrada at 1.5. Gorman is down at 1.3. It's really not even remotely close. Not only has Ketel been better than everyone else offensively, he's also been better than everyone else defensively, or at least you could make a pretty convincing case for that. So Ketel should start at second base for the National League, at least as of right now. Luis Arraez, I guess, is another name that we should mention here. I don't think he popped up on my WAR search because he's played some first base this season as well. So I guess he's another name that could be a factor there as well.
Christian Walker is a guy that obviously we all think of as an all-star, but I know he hasn't been having the type of year we hoped to see him have. I'm sure it's not the type of year he personally wishes he would have, especially in a contract year like this. But what is Christian Walker's chance? Do we have a chance of seeing him get the all-star bid? I know he's kind of up there in the mix, but he has a couple of big names kind of ahead of him.
I mean, the big names are pretty obvious. It's Bryce Harper and Freddie Freeman. I think you can pretty much lock in both of those guys right now. So if there were to be a third first baseman for the National League, then I think Christian Walker probably would have the best case for that as of right now. He has a 799 OPS. Pete Alonso has a 792. So those guys are pretty close. There's a few other first basemen that aren't far behind. If you go by wins above replacement there over Fangraphs, it's actually really close between Harper, Freeman, and Walker. Harper's at 2.2, Freeman's at 2.1, and Walker's at 2.0. That, of course, having a lot to do with what Walker does defensively. Yeah. He is the best defensive first baseman in baseball. That's a pretty well-established fact at this point. So I don't think people really factor in defense as much when they're casting their all-star ballots, although I think they should. I think defense matters, but yeah, it's not a super convincing case. I think you could maybe get a third first baseman in there, but a 799 OPS right now for Walker, he's gonna have to bring that up if he's gonna play in that game.
What about the relievers on this team? I do know that Torey brought up Paul Sewald earlier this week. He also brought up Ketel and Christian Walker, obviously, but he brought up Sewald. And Sewald probably doesn't have the amount of time or the innings pitched to really qualify for that. But what about other guys? Torey brought up Ryan Thompson, and we brought up Justin Martinez on the show the other day. Both of them seem like they are having an incredible year and could be at least, especially Justin Martinez, just an incredible breakout moment where he goes from being a guy that we all know to a guy that everybody in baseball comes to learn his name.
I mean, right now, J Mart's at I believe it's 21 2/3 innings and 1 earned run. I mean, if we get to the All-Star break and say he rattles off another 10 scoreless between now and then, are we really to say that Justin Martinez with I guess it'd be like a sub 0.3 ERA at that point? Is that guy not an all-star? I know he spent some time in the minors and he's not a closer. He hasn't really pitched in many high leverage situations, but I at least wonder if there comes a point when your ERA is so ridiculously low that they're like, yeah, you're in because your ERA is 0.27 or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd be pretty surprised if J Mart found a way to make it. I do think that the fact that he missed some time and the role that he's been in for most of his time, those are legitimate factors there. I don't know if he'll still have only given up 1 run by the time the All-Star break actually rolls around.
Well, and do middle relievers typically get an opportunity in the All-Star game like that? Right. I mean, you have the starters that are going out there and just pitching 1 inning, right? So it just doesn't feel typically like guys deserve or earn that chance, no matter how good they are as a middle reliever. If that was the case, though, Ryan Thompson should definitely be considered as well. Not just because of his numbers, not just because of his 1.04 ERA in 26 innings pitched, Jesse, but Ryan Thompson should be considered because what a story that is. What a story he is. And again, I'm not acting like he was terrible with the Tampa Bay Rays because he wasn't. We looked at the results from last year. We looked at the numbers. He really just had basically 2 bad outings that really destroyed his ERA. And then next thing you know, he became the expendable member of their bullpen. Luckily for us, he did, because Thompson has been incredible. Not to mention, on a personal note, how delightful he's been for you and I we had him on this show. He was an incredible interview. He's a very interesting person to talk to with a lot of things going on in life, not just in baseball. And he's just one of the nicest people I've ever met. Like when you see him in that puppy commercial rolling around with the puppies on the floor, that was legitimately just what he was doing. Like, yes, they captured it on camera. Nobody directed him to do that. The man saw puppies and he melted into a puddle on the floor of the dugout. Like, how is that not a man you can get behind? Not to mention what a wonderful story it would be from Tampa Bay Ray castoff to All-Star, essentially in over the course of a 12-month period. Like, that's an incredibly cool story, and that would be awesome to see.
Yeah, he's thrown a few more innings than Martinez. He's at 26. J Mart, as I said, I think is at 21 2/3. So I think from an inning standpoint, he's in a totally fine place. I mean, he's obviously been pitching with the D-backs the whole season. He didn't miss any time or anything. Right. And yeah, he's given up 3 earned runs in those 26 innings, which is pretty darn impressive. He's been, I guess you could kind of fit him into the setup man category. He's been the Diamondbacks 8th inning guy for a while. Yeah. I'm looking at the rosters from last year just as sort of a reference point. In the American League, as far as relievers go, we had Kenley Jansen, Emmanuel Clase, Felix Bautista, Yenier Cano, and Carlos Estevez, who are all closers, with the exception of Cano, who I guess was operating as the setup man for the Orioles at that point. And then in the National League, I believe you just had closers. It's Alexis Diaz, Josh Hader, Devin Williams, Camilo Duvall, David Bednar, and Craig Kimbrell. So yeah, it does seem like, and I think if we were to look back at rosters from years past, years further in the past, I think you would see that it does tend to be closers and maybe like one setup guy or maybe 2 setup guys. So I don't think it's a guarantee, but given the role, but Thompson it's hard to argue he's not deserving. I mean, 3 earned runs in 26 innings, pretty much all of that high leverage situations. He's been so huge for this Diamondbacks team.
Well, Jesse, tomorrow the London series takes place between the New York Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah.
I'm just rooting for both teams to lose, basically, is what I'm rooting for. There's been some pretty hideous clothing items that have been spotted by John Boy and others in the London area. A lot of Mets Phillies dual logo things where it's like a hoodie or a shirt. And like, it's not just like, it's one thing to acknowledge the series and to have the logo, like the London series with the Phillies logo and the Mets on it. This is just insane clothing where it has 2 division rivals on it, like as if you can't decide which team you like more. Your dad's from Philly, your mom's from Queens, and you can't decide, so you're just, I root for both teams, like, yay. Like, that's really what's going on. And I don't think that's fair to the people of England, Jesse. I don't feel like they deserve to be confused and then later mocked by us Americans that know better for buying those terrible items of clothing. But I am.
Yeah. Who would be the target audience for that? Because
it's someone who is attending the game. They're from the UK or maybe Europe or something, and they're just buying the souvenir. Like, they don't really have an affiliation with either team. They don't care, nor do they really understand how egregious it is that both teams are on the same article of clothing. Jesse, could you imagine if the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers had a shirt where it was just the D and the LA just running around together on a shirt together?
Yeah,
that's gross.
I don't think Diamondbacks fans would be wearing that really anywhere. And also, like, people who are from the UK, they don't strike me as being neutral. I'm just here to kind of have a good time. Like, I feel like those people attending the game in London, they have a team that they're rooting for, right?
That's fine. They might not, but more importantly, if you explained to them, if you were like, this would be like rooting for Cardiff and then them playing Wrexham and then those teams playing each other, which I very much got an MLB Wrexham collab shirt that's on its way just to bother Owen. And this is definitely becoming the most expensive joke I've ever been involved with ever. But moving on from that, I mean, like, if you explain to them, it would be like 2 teams that hate each other being on the same article of clothing. They would understand that more than American sports fans. Like, those people over there understand a rivalry. They understand hating a team that is a direct, adversary of yours. So I'm sure they would very much understand not to do that, not to buy those pieces of clothing. And I bet they won't sell anyway. Those are all going to end up on Fanatics website at half off. So don't you worry. Those no one's buying those. But I am grateful that the Diamondbacks aren't playing in a series like this, Jesse. And it's not because, if they were, you and I would definitely be flying to England, and that would definitely be a good time. I would, just like Mega Ran did, the first stop would be for crumpets when I arrive there, because that's what you have to do when you're there. But what we've seen is these weird series tend to mess teams up. And I mean, I'm not opposed to that happening to the Phillies right now. I won't be honest. I won't lie. We know that this happened to the Diamondbacks when they went to Australia. They had a horrible season that year.
Yeah, and it was all because of those.
It was all because of Australia
that they played in Sydney before the rest of the season started.
That's what I'm blaming it on.
Yeah, it'll be. I mean, I still, on a more serious note, like I really think it's cool that Major League Baseball is doing this. They're trying to build. They're trying to get more eyes on the product. They're trying to get people excited about baseball in other countries, and that's a good thing. That's something that absolutely should be happening. The matchups, as we've discussed in the past, have always seemed a little bizarre. We had the Astros playing the Rockies in Mexico City earlier this season.
No sense. This at least is an actual division rivalry, right? So this is a division rivalry. I mean, the Phillies are a way better team than the Mets at this point. Like, I don't think there's really any disputing that. I guess maybe that, they probably schedule these things way out in advance. They don't know exactly how good each team is going to be at that point. Padres Dodgers was okay. Like that, that's a decent division rivalry as well when we had that to open this 2024 season. But it would be like the most cool if you could have two teams against each other where it's just like a totally electric matchup, everyone wants to see. But yeah, it should be fun to watch. I'm looking forward to it. I wonder, are they considering this home games for one team or another? Do they each have a home game? Like, does one team get to be the home team and then the next day?
They'd probably do it that way, right? Where each team gets one. Otherwise, it would be pretty clearly a disservice to, it would be giving one team a clear advantage, the other team a clear disadvantage.
This whole thing happening during the regular season, like, I am completely with this, Jesse. I'm much like you. I love the idea of growing the game. I like the idea of holding it in cool different locations. I would love to see them travel to Japan because of how much, baseball is revered in Japan. But I also think, like, again, I'm not joking when I say I'm grateful that the team I cover and I root for is not involved in this, because it feels like just a huge kind of distraction in the middle of the season, especially a season where the Phillies are off to such a good start, and you don't really want to compromise that, or you don't want to have something kind of make, turn things in a negative direction. So it's a lot of travel, it's a lot of stuff, but I get it. I mean, we're in the modern era. Things are easier. It's easier to travel internationally than it's ever been. But there's one main point I want to make, and that's this video that I found. Damon, if you don't mind.
Here's the race. You got Henry VIII, the Loch Ness Monster, which, as it turns out, had nothing in the way of foot speed. You've got Winston Churchill, cigar and all, and then Freddie Mercury. The Freeze bit the dust earlier, but Freddie Mercury, he is the champion.
Don't stop me now, Jesse. I'm having a good time. I'm having a ball. Oh, my God. I can't believe they did this. I can't believe they brought over essentially a legends race to England. It's possibly the most important part of baseball, so I'm very glad they didn't forget it. But I am absolutely delighted by the legends that they chose to appear. We just talked about this the other day. We talked about sprucing up our legends race, revamping it, getting some new blood in there, right? The Loch Ness fucking Monster, Jesse? The Loch Ness Monster? Are you kidding me? Winston Churchill, Freddie Mercury comes from the outside and takes the race. I loved every minute of this. And the minute I saw this, I was 100% in for the London series.
Isn't I would imagine that the flight from Philly or New York to London is probably not that far.
No, not bad.
Right?
Yeah, not bad. I mean,
Yeah.
shorter than probably about the same distance as flying from coast to coast, I imagine.
Yeah, the Mariners are like, geez, guys, like we do
this all the
all the time.
Whenever we're about to play the Marlins, oh my God, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, they're having fun with it, which is good. I'm excited to see how it looks tomorrow. We've got Ranger Suarez against Sean Manaea in the first game. Looks like the Mets are playing the role of home team on Saturday, and then Sunday it's Jose Quintana against Taijuan Walker. Not exactly the most electric pitching matchup in that Sunday game, but yeah, should be fun to watch. Hopefully there's some good offense, in that one, I suppose.
I cover sports for a living. We've talked about this. Damon and I were just talking about this the other day. It's hard sometimes to like have time off away from work and then still get it as excited about watching sports as you used to as a fan. But I am pumped for tomorrow. I mean, we have early morning baseball in London. We got the Belmont Stakes. I'm not trying to do an ad here for Fox, but I might as well just be. So I know Max is going to yell at me for the free ad, but I mean, I'm watching Fox all day long. You got LA playing the Yankees. Then you also have the Diamondbacks taking on the Padres later in the evening. So it is going to be a day filled with baseball and horses going around in circles for a little bit. So I'm very excited for that. So, but I hope all of you guys enjoy your weekend. I hope you have similar plans. I'm also taking my daughter to see Alanis Morissette and Joan Jett and the Blackhearts on Sunday. And I kind of wish it was Father's Day because there isn't really a better way I could imagine spending a day with my 13-year-old daughter watching acts that I kind of grew up loving and now she loves. She has a Alanis Morissette record. She has stuff like that. So I'm excited about that. And I'm very much looking forward to having some family time this weekend. I hope you guys all get down on that as well. Unfortunately, it's going to be at an outdoor concert venue on a day where it's 112 degrees. So I might not make it back to this show. So if I don't, I bid you guys adieu. I love you all and I wish you the best. In the meantime, I would still appreciate it whether I'm dead or alive. If you followed me on Twitter, I'm at cap_caveman with a K. Of course, this maniac recovering in San Diego next to me is that
you see how much water I'm drinking, Derek?
You were drinking a ton of water, man, and I'm proud of you. I am so every time I want to like shout out or something, like we need a little water counter that Jesse's taking care of himself and hydrating. But make sure to follow him at Jesse N. Friedman. He will be in San Diego providing you with all sorts of wonderful information from the final two games of the series, along with post-game coverage. So do not miss out on following him. Of course, our producer, the people's producer, Damon, is at Damon Dog. That's DAWG. We are Damon's Dogs. Bark, bark. Bark. Our show is at PHNX_ D-backs, but all roads do lead to at PHNX_ sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Like who said right here, go vote Cattell and Christian Walker before you go to bed. And it's 11:08. I don't know how the time zone things work on the voting website, but maybe just stay up for another hour and then vote for them again. And then you have that taken care of for tomorrow. It's one less thing to do tomorrow while you're watching baseball and horses race around in circles. So take care of that. Take care of yourselves. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back on Monday with our Mailbag Monday episode. So drop us some questions. Make sure not to miss that special interview I did if you are a diehard with our friend Steve Zinsmeister. And also don't forget to have a wonderful weekend. We will see you guys back next week. Thank you for being a Diamondbacks fan. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when you don't quit on the team in the 8th inning.
We all silly like the mayor.